A annual letter. For the first time, I don't believe we got a letter like this before. I could just be misremembering because, of course, I've been following Palantir from the beginning of their direct listing, but I do not remember seeing one of these before. So we have it for February 14th, 2022. And yeah, let's just dive right in. If you're expecting this to be some talk about the stock and the stock price or something like that, you are in the wrong place here, because this, of course, is the leader himself, Alex Karp, deep on the philosophical motives of the business, of the product, and everything like that. I've picked out my best parts, what I think are most interesting, and let's get going. Hopefully this will be a fairly quick video, but there is much deeper meaning if you want to dive in. I am just picking out what I think are just my thoughts in this. He says, "Our existence has always been improbable. We founded the company to build software for defense and intelligence agencies." So he's coming out and saying, like many great businesses, really always the probabilities are always against them. Their existence was never really certain, but this is where they started. Organizations, of course, the government needed to do their jobs, overwhelmingly dominated by an industry that had tens of thousands of employees and essentially unlimited resources, but Palantir, all they had was the idea for a great product to displace all of that. They've grown significantly over the past 2 decades and helped create an entire category of software development, one whose full potential we believe is still becoming apparent. Still becoming apparent. They do not, or at least Alex Karp is saying here, they do not believe their full potential, as he's saying, is not yet fully apparent, which I think those are key words right there. The strength and continued survival of every large organization in the world requires the implementation of software platforms. Okay, that's important. Software platforms, not just software solutions, that are capable of enabling both technical and non-technical workforces to model and make sense of the world in which we live. Okay. And he talks about how every industry and every sector in the world is becoming of course, down to the company level, a software company, willingly or otherwise. I love that. I think that is awesome. Of course, software has eaten the world and is important for every aspect of everything, I guess you could say. He says the demand for software platforms that allow an institution to harness the productive capacity of its human capital and whose value persists and compounds over time has never been greater. Okay, the demand for their solution for a product has never been greater and will continue to be greater over time. It's a matter of them proving so. And they built these platforms as well as the hundreds of components, products that make them work. So they've built this, they've delivered the solution. They said in this century, they believe that the only moat is software. The only moat is software. Well, of course, that's an exaggeration. It is a very, very interesting idea. The only moat is software. What does that really mean? Well, of course, you can tie it back to, at the end of the day, who has the best software, who's invested the most, who has the right ideas on where software is going. I guess that's what he's getting at there. Software is ubiquitous and essential. Its underlying code is also completely and literally ineligible to all but the smallest sliver of the population. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words today. But he's basically saying the way software has been previously is you have to know how to code, you have to be a software engineer, which essentially limits the overwhelming majority of the population that are doing important productive work. So how is that good? How is that useful? Well, it's not. So they believe that the construction of something lasting and substantial requires some degree of insulation and protection from the outside world. So I'm not sure about the transition there between those thoughts, but this is interesting because he gets into this idea of being insulated and protected from the outside world. Again, not entirely sure what this whole idea of being insulated really means, but of course I think it comes back to how Palantir has been rather secretive, as many call them. Karp here is explaining it in his words. This is a part where he kind of loses me, but he says, of course, their job is not to deliver what the market thinks it wants but does not need. They say that the most software companies are either uninterested in producing or unable to produce products that address the fundamental needs of a large institution. The investment requirement is too high. The potential payoff is too uncertain. On this idea of insulation and stuff like that, I think it's saying that Palantir thrives when it is more insulated, when it is more focused than being on this bigger conquest of the industry where if it's too much insulation, it's too specific. But if it's too little, then as I said, it's focusing on what the market thinks it wants. So I love how Alex Karp has a view on this and why Palantir kind of does its own thing. I think that definitely is the explanation there. The problems that we seek to address are not small. Of course, we all knew that. And the construction of a software platform that consists of hundreds of component parts for the purpose of metabolizing tens of thousands of tables of data, some of which have billions of rows each, presents enormous technical, of course, not technical, well, I guess it's both, challenges. The implementation of such a platform at an organization that may have dozens of separate divisions and hundreds of thousands of people presents further challenges. The management of data across different countries and legal regimens adds additional complexity. So he's basically saying this is how hard what we're doing is. It's not only hard for one reason, it's hard for two, for three, for four, stacking on top of each other, adding more and more complexity. It's almost multiplicative in nature, the powers of complexity. A commitment to the development and refinement of an idea over the long term is required in order to build something significant that is and will continue to be of value. So he's saying, not only can you not do this in the short term, if you have a short-term mindset, you will never build something of long-term value, okay? That's basically what he's getting at there. A misalignment exists between the producers and the consumers of software. The software industry today has become extractive in enterprise, and an extractive focus on extracting value in the enterprise and not the other way around, providing value. The principle being that they're able to take the efficient extraction and monetization of personal information, and how Palantir actually reframes that and goes back to what you would actually want from a company, which is the product is for sale, not the software itself. It's the product. It's you're buying what this does. The construction of a more efficient platform for the distribution of consumer advertising has never been our ambition. We have declined to build our business on the back of monetizing data that is not ours and that we do not own. The decision led us to focus on the nature and value of the software itself that we are building rather than what it consumes. The distinction is significant and is the source of our alignment with our customers. The value that our software creates in the world is a result of the software itself, not the information or the data of those who use it. So this is key here. Let me just mention this one last thing. The alignment is in turn the source of everything we have built. So basically he's saying our value is going to be so much greater than a company that chooses just to define its value on someone else's data. Like, of course, the social media, you can draw that parallel. You could say like Facebook, like, do they really have value inherently beyond the app itself, beyond the website? I mean, this is probably a terrible example, but what I'm saying is Palantir's platform has inherent value beyond having a network itself, beyond having users. It has inherent value because you can start from zero with it and put in your company's information and add all the data streams, and that's just my read on it. Maybe I'm wrong on that. We have views and we defend them, calling out how the decision to act is a radical one in the corporate world because of the lack of opportunity for genuine discourse or original thought. And he says, we will not back down from defending those who defend us. Really powerful statement. The relationship between this country's governing elite and the military, whose existence is a precondition for the power of the ruling class, is unfortunately complex. This is the kind of literature, and not even just literature, just powerful thought you will get from Alex Karp. We are not ambivalent about the side we have chosen when it comes to supporting the defense of the United States. Of course. Yet some people still don't understand it. Everything we have accomplished and everything we have built has been made possible by the country in which our company was founded, which really is like what it should be when you think about it. But not always. The extent of American outperformance in fostering a culture of productive insurgency when it comes to the construction and remaking of business is difficult to overstate. We are witnessing firsthand the singular ability of American institutions to adapt to the restructuring of our economy as a result of the advance and adoption of enterprise software that has converted nominally non-technical workforces across industries into engineers. Okay, so yeah, back to that idea of the no-code, low-code environment. The recent and significant expansion of our business in the United States reflects the maturation and refinement of our software platforms, but also the fundamental plasticity of this country's organizational culture. So going back to the country, but also reflecting on the Foundry and Gotham platforms starting to get to actually a more mature state and being so refined over the years. And they talk, and he's talking here about difficult choices and trade-offs. Of course, when you have a business like Palantir, nothing comes easy. They understand that all technology, including ours, is dangerous and that software can be used as a weapon. Lives have been saved and taken as a result of these software products we have built. That's pretty crazy. There are risks. And, this is what I love about Karp, is that he's very forthright, upfront about everything. Of course, he's writing this letter and he gets to choose it, like what he wants to include, but he's chosen to show the other side of the story here. He's talking about the risks. He's actually talking about the truth behind the product, the platform, the company. The technocratic elite in Silicon Valley may believe that most or all of the world's significant moral and political questions that have been resolved, that the divergent views of a broader public may be dismissed as inconvenient and unconsidered notes of dissent. We disagree. The constraints that some of the largest technology companies in the world attempt to impose on our public discourse risk compromising their ability to remain disruptive, or else consign them to disrupt a world in which they alone live. Wow, I feel like a short video is not enough for this, but currently don't have time to do anything else. A fortunate union exists between our business and moral objectives. Our companies engage in elaborate efforts to distract from the lack of social value their underlying businesses create, taking shots at everyone else in the industry. And, well, I suppose it's not everyone else, but those that actually try to distract from their lack of value that they're actually making. Come on, we need value, and that's what Palantir is striving for. It's great to hear that reiterated. Doesn't the value get rewarded in the end? Doesn't the value get rewarded? I think that's what has historically always been the case. Most attempts at such marketing are both ineffective and transparent. Now, it's interesting how he uses the word transparent for marketing, but he's essentially saying we see right through it. Wait, come on. You're not fooling most people here. You might fool some with advertising because that's the point, but you're not fooling the people that actually understand what's going on. So in closing, he says, we build software to ensure the survival of our most vital institutions. What do you do? Actually, no, that's not what he says. But he says, we succeed only if and when those institutions do. So there it is. That is, let me scroll to the top. And this is the annual letter for 2022, February 14th. This is Chief Executive Officer Alex Karp, who will be appearing on the conference call in just 3 days at this point, Thursday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern, and will be addressing the nation, or rather the Palantirians and hobbits alike. Hopefully this was useful. You can read it in French if you want to. You can find it on palantir.com. Until next time.